Mass media. Mass media refers to media intended to reach large audience and includes traditional media such as newspaper, radio, television, and film. These forms of media, as well as the newer social media discussed later in the chapter, facilitate time-space comprehension and distanciation. Television, internet, radio, and newspapers are examples of mass media. Newspapers began appearing in the late 70s, and by 1850, daily papers were available throughout much of Europe. Through the dissemination of knowledge, people began development of heightened consciousness of other parts of the world, which facilitated communications across vast distances. With the advent of radio, time and space began further compress their institutions communication on radio waves. Television and film went a step further by using video to stimulate comparisons between television performers and their absent audience. Media imperialism is a theory based upon an overconcentration of mass media from larger nations as a significant variable in negatively affecting smaller nations, in which the national identity of smaller nations is lessened or lost due to media homogeneity inherent in mass media from the larger countries. Media imperialism is a subcategory under the broader heading of cultural imperialism. The conventional view for quite some time was that it was a Western, especially US media, and the technology associated with those media that were imperialistic and that dominated less developed nations and their cultures. Then there are the local and regional media, which have always been important but have become increasingly so in recent years. Another factor is the expansion of internet as a source of highly diverse media of all sorts. Finally, the global distribution of, say, an American movie or television program does not mean that it is going to be viewed and understood everywhere in the way that its creators intended or interpreted in the same way as it is would be by an American audience. The idea that media products are interpreted differently by different audiences throughout the world is in the line with the widely accepted contemporary view, most associated with the postmodern social theories, that media products are simply text, and what is the greatest important is not what their author intend, but the interpretation of the reader or viewer. People are not passive recipients of media but actively construct their products. This emphasis on the power of the person, reader, viewer, serves to undermine the idea of media imperialism.
New global media. In spite of arguments against media imperialism, the fact is that we have witnessed the rise of the new global media. Example: Apple, Facebook, Alibaba, Twitter, Google, and Microsoft, with a great power to impose their system on large portions of the world. Process of eliminating competition is maximize profits is fairly well advanced in the old media. It is ongoing in the case of the new. Their competition continues, but largely because the process the new entities has yet to settle. Thus, for example, Facebook succeeded in the vanquishing a number of early competitors for the position of dominant social networking site, but continue to compete with other, and there is always the possibility of the new companies arising. Furthermore, giant in industry such as New Corps, Microsoft, Google, and Facebook are either seeking to create their own versions of successful new media, especially on the internet, or are looking to buy into or gain control over already successful sites. Thinking about the global media, much of the current thinking on the media in general, and then especially on the relationship between it and the globalization, as the roots is Marshall McLuhan's prescient ideas on the global village. In the new media age, McLuhan famous argued, the medium is the message. That is, it is the medium, television, that is important than the content. Example, particular television program. This lead to a new sense of the power of the media to shape individual subjectivity and culture, not only locally, but globally. As important as his insight were, McLuhan failed to link the global proliferation of the media to their origins in the large-scale social structure and the social institutions.
Debord, 1967 to 1994, is a French social theorist known for his work on the spectacle, media spectacle, and the globalization of such a spectacle, and the ability of spectacle to produce and reproduce capitalism to consumer culture on a global scale. This is perhaps best exemplified by the emergence of the TV news as entertainment. The focus is on the spectacular visual rather than on what are the most important news events of the day. If an event has no significant visual associated with it, it is likely to get little or no TV time. Globalization from above, a process created and disseminated by larger scale forces, such as the nation state and the MNS, especially those associated with the North and imposed on the South, especially their nation states and businesses. Globalization from below, an attempt by crossroads across the shape global processes and engage in global exchange, usually in opposition to MNSs and other larger and more powerful forces.
The Internet and social media. The Internet is one of the largest computer network that connects billions of people. And it is also one of many viral digital technologies that have had effect in many things including globalization. The Internet is one of several digital technologies that have had profound effect on many things including globalization. Digital technologies store and transmit data based on binary or dichotomous coding. It means digital technologies are used to store and transmit digital data. To store and transmit data based on the binary coding of data. This refers to the code used in digital computers. It refers to the various methods of encoding data. Other technologies include the computer, chips, semiconductor processor, DVDs, wireless router, 3D printers, tablet, and wearable technologies. Since its birth in the 1990s, the Internet has profoundly affected almost every aspect of life, especially in the developed world. Everyone is using the Internet to do things. The Internet makes the everyone life easier. And the Internet is one of the things that has greatly contributed to the globalization. Global and civil senses. Uses are not equally divided between the North and South region, for they do not exist virtually everywhere in the world. It means not all the people can access the Internet or technologies. It may be because of their status or stability. Global and transnational corporation and organization. The Internet produced and maintained by several global transnational corporations include intergovernmental organizations (IGOs) and international non-government organizations (NGOs), World Intellectual Property Organization (WIPO), the Interreg Corporation for Assigned Names and Numbers (ICANN), United Nations Education, Science and Culture Organization (UNESCO). Online social networking. Social networking sites such as Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn involve communication networking and the creation of friendship networks among their users. They are online platforms where people share similar personal or career content, interests, activities, background, or real-life connection. They fall under the definition of social media, which also include Wikipedia, the blog post sphere, podcast, video streaming platforms, messaging apps, augmented reality games, and much else. Those who engage in these activities are part of virtual social network. Those who operate on social media can be called prosumers because they simultaneously produce what they consume. Given the character of the internet, all social networking sites are global. Prosumer means individual who consume and produce value. Many top social media sites were started in the United States, including Twitter, YouTube, Instagram, Reddit, and Pinterest. Social networking sites have shaped how individuals manage their identity in the global world. Herring and Kapitzik 2015. It means we expose ourselves on the social media the way we think about ourselves and others. Social networking sites illustrate the process of time, space, compensation, and distanciation. They enable users from literally anywhere with an internet connection to chat, participate in group in real time. This form of social wizard for exceeded earlier technologies in their ability to coordinate online events and relationships. The new time and space media theorist John Potts 2015 discussed the way in which these new technologies have continued to shape time and space. John Potts 2015, he discussed how social media, tablets, laptop, and smartphone have continued to shape time and space in a variety of ways over the last few decades. Bitcoin and blockchain. Blockchain, including bitcoins, involve a multi-directional flow of information about transactions. In the main, these heavy structures expedite the flow of information on the blockchain, but some structure can impede it. For example, there is great fear that heavy nation-states will seek to control and limit the flow of the Bitcoin as the flow of the traditional currencies that are at least potentially entreated by Bitcoin. Bitcoin is one of the new types of globally available universal currencies found and created by controlled by computer code as entries on a blockchain ledger. Beyond its claim to be more reliable than fiat currencies, Bitcoin also claims to expedite business deals because transaction fees are low. Bitcoins are hard. Counterfeit Bitcoins can be bought and sold easily by buyers, sellers, and dealers, and Bitcoin can be used to buy commodities in the real world. Bitcoins constitutes a challenge to the centralized financial organizations that have traditionally dominated global finance among many other things. Bitcoin is already an extensive global phenomenon, although it has not yet been widely adopted as a currency.
Let's proceed to our topic, the internet and social media. Here are the topics that we are going to discuss. First, the internet in China. Second, the fight for global internet governance. And lastly, social media and social movements. The internet in China. China overtook the United States in terms of a total number of internet users in 2008. Here are the facts in the internet in China. In year 2013, according to Hunt and Su, 2 million people are employed by the state and private companies to police the internet, and hundreds of millions of posts are made each year to influence public opinion. And according to Zhu et al., the 30% controversial posts are deleted occur within 5 to 30 minutes, and 90% of deletions happen within first 24 hours. In year 2016, according to Crowcroft, 25% of the internet is blocked in China. And according to Denver, 40% of the world's online trade in goods that e-commerce captures. As of the end of 2017, there were 772 million internet users there, or 55.6% of the China's population, or more than 1 in 5 of the world's users. In 2017, China's first cybersecurity law came into effect. According to Qiang, the law required the internet companies to allow even more surveillance of their networks. submit to mandated security reviews of their equipment, and provide data to government investigators when requested. At the year 2018, four of the top 10 internet companies in the world were headquartered in China. It was long believed that China could not maintain the Great Firewall forever, and that eventually it would crumble. But as of 2018, government control of the internet was stronger than ever, as its leader claimed the internet sovereignty. The government had long permitted the use of virtual private networks, or VPNs, to access blocked content. But in 2016, it started systematically shutting them down, and in 2018, it announced that blockage of overseas VPN services. Internet sovereignty, the cracks in the wall are becoming smaller. It means that the government controls the internet and we are the internet sovereignty. Whereas the cracks in the barriers of the global flows are becoming smaller because the government became more aggressive in monitoring their people. Global flows. What is the most interesting about the internet in China today? From the perspective of this book, is how well it illustrates the basics argument about the relationship between global flows and structural barriers to them. These are the global flows in the internet in China. First, pirated films, music and TV shows, which can be watched free of charge. The delivery of mobile internet content, for example, music. Online communities involving social networking and instant messaging, gossip, photos, and videos of American and European sports, and so on. These global flows serves as the news feed or source of information in the country of China. Thus, the 40% of the world's online trade in goods is what e-commerce captures. Golden Shield or Great Firewall. This part of a larger effort by the Chinese government to block various flows. The Golden Shield project, often referred to as the Great Firewall of China, is a censorship and surveillance project operated by divisions of the China government. These are the structural barriers, or what China called Great Firewall. First, censoring the news, controlling what is shown on television, placing limits on bookshops and movie theaters, restricted access to a large number of foreign websites, for example, Wikipedia, Twitter, YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, and Google. Thus, the 25% of the entire internet is blocked in China. Also, there are several other countries censor the internet, including Russia, Cuba, Vietnam, Iran, Egypt, and Pakistan. Chinese government strategies. Overall, there are many flows into and through China on the internet, but much else is limited or blocked altogether. The Chinese government deploys a number of strategies to police any news that the government considers a threat content to social stability or the ruling party. According to Baidu, China's main search engine designed to keep out material regarded by the government as politically sensitive. For example, Chinese internet users are not permitted to access content about the Tiananmen Square protest of 1989, calling for democracy, free speech, and a free press in China. Sina Weibo or Weibo, China's main microblogging platform and one of the country's most popular sites, Chinese officials work swiftly to censor content posted on Weibo. Globalization and the flat world thesis to the internet in China. Perhaps no change has done more to further the process of globalization than the advent of the internet. It occupies pride of place in many analyses of globalization, especially Friedman 2005 idea of the flat world. It means that maybe no change has done in terms of globalization in China, and it doesn't affect its people rather than the occurrence of internet. According to Friedman 2005, the internet is flat in the sense that virtually anyone, anywhere, can become involved in it. However, there are reservations about the flat world argument. The whole of social history indicates that there are always strong pressures to erect barriers to movement of all types. Both the flat world thesis and the weaknesses in it are nicely illustrated by the case of the internet in China today and the continuing efforts of the state to erect barriers to it. Next, the fight for global internet governance. Internet governance emerged in the 1990s through a complex process of negotiation between various stakeholder groups. The US government created ICANN, a non-profit group that assigns IP address and domain names. In 2012, Russia and other countries proposed shifting internet governance to an international body and individual states. Given the issue of censorship, privacy, and control raised in this section, global internet governance is a particularly important issue today. Of course, there are various coalition and negotiations who are part of this global internet governance, including the US ICANN and US National Security Agency or NSA, and the British counterpart of it, the Government Communication Headquarters or GCHQ, and countries like China and Russia that they continue to argue that the internet is a threat to national sovereignty and desire greater control over and surveillance of these global flows. And lastly, social media and social movements. In the internet age, social movements have harnessed technology for their goals. For individuals to take action against injustice, they must be able to envision a better future and overcome fear. Today's mass self-communication brought about by the internet has dramatically changed this potential. The question is, why do social movements need media? According to the University of Michigan student, that social media can bring a lot of good to social and political movements by creating a truly democratic platform. People use this platform to communicate, organize, and publicize issues, and so many people have the access to also engage with the content created. So, thank you for listening, and that's the end of our topic. Thank you.